Amendment 1 is a sham. It's a scam. It's not pro-solar. It was designed to mislead voters into believing that it's a pro-solar amendment, when in fact it helps nobody except the utility companies. I am logged into right now helpsolarpower.com. This is the sister site for helpsolarpower.org. I am looking at right now the section that says Amendment 1 is a bait and switch amendment designed to confuse voters in Florida. This has a good explanation of exactly what it is that why the solar people in Florida are fighting against this amendment. Okay, let's take a look here first to see who actually sponsored Amendment 1. Amendment 1 was sponsored by the big utility companies. If you look here, you see the top donors are Florida Power and Light, Duke Energy, Tampa Electric Company, and Gulf Power and Light. If you notice, there are no consumers here. It says here, PAC, Consumers for Smart Solar. This should be called Utilities for Smart Solar because there are no consumers listed in this list. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of read from here basically what this site says. Amendment 1 of Florida's 2016 ballot was paid for by Florida's big utility companies under the misleading name of Consumers for Smart Solar, also known as Yes on One for the Sun, to stop solar power in Florida. And it says, as you can see from the list of top donors below, the only ones who support this amendment are big monopoly utility companies. This little chart shows you where everything's coming. You notice there again, we have big power companies and the Koch brothers and ExxonMobil. So we have big oil, big utilities, basically sponsoring this sham solar amendment. There's a bunch of links here where you can find this information. And I'll read here from the top again. Amendment 1 on Florida's November 2016 ballot is a blatant bait and switch amendment designed to mislead and confuse voters. Amendment 1 is not pro-solar. Amendment 1 was sponsored by the big utility companies to help the big utility companies, not consumers. The utility companies' proposed amendment reads as follows. Okay, so it actually shows how it reads, and it outlines why this is a bait and switch amendment. If you notice, the name of it, Rights of Electricity Consumers Regarding Solar Energy Choice. There is no solar energy choice here. What they're trying to do is kill solar. These are big utility companies that want to maintain their monopoly by not giving you solar choice. Florida is one of only 4 states in the country which do not allow third-party companies to come in, install solar panels on your roof free of charge, and sell you the power at a portion of the cost that you pay from the electric companies. All right, so here's the bait. Rights we already have. This amendment would provide no new rights for solar owners or consumers. These are the first 2 sentences of the amendment, of the proposed amendment, which are basically designed to fool people into believing that this is pro-solar, when in fact, this only helps the utility companies, not consumers, and definitely not solar. This amendment establishes a right under Florida's Constitution for consumers to own or lease solar equipment installed on their property to generate electricity for their own use. Okay, we already have that right. We don't need to change Florida's Constitution to give us that right because we already have that right. State and local governments shall retain their abilities to protect consumer rights and public health, safety, and welfare. Why this is on there, I have no idea, because no amendment would challenge those states' rights. Here is the switch. Unfortunately, most people will only read the first 2 sentences and assume that this is pro-solar, when in fact it's clearly not. The last sentence reads, and to ensure that consumers who do not choose to install solar are not required to subsidize the cost of backup power and electric grid access to those who do. This is just a blatant sham. This is misleading. People who produce solar are not subsidizing. They're actually helping to lower everybody's. People who produce electricity through the use of solar panels are not being subsidized by the people who are not. People who produce electricity through solar panels are actually helping to lower the cost of electricity for everybody. And they're also helping the environment in doing so. All right, switch. Rights utility companies want to have in order to legally penalize, fine, and charge Floridians for having solar. So basically, what this last sentence basically is asking for is to change Florida's constitution so they can legally charge people for using less of their product. This is a complete and total sham. Basically, they're asking Florida to allow them to penalize people for using less power. So this would be the equivalent of me driving a Prius and I have to pay some type of fee to the gas stations because I'm using less gas now. You see how this makes absolutely no sense? All right. The notion that people without solar are subsidizing people with solar is a fallacy. It's not true. Rooftop solar increases the supply of power to the grid and reduces the demand. 101 economics teaches us that more supply and less demand equals lower prices for everyone. Lower electricity prices helps consumers, not the utility companies' profits. This utility company's goal is to be able to legally penalize people for consuming less power. Like I said before, the utility company's goal is to be able to legally penalize people for consuming less power. Amendment 1, if passed, could fine and charge Floridians for having rooftop solar power. Please help solar power in Florida by voting no on 1 in November and by visiting, donating, volunteering at flsolarchoice.org, or you can check out helpsolarpower.org, Floridians for Solar Choice, which is flsolarchoice.org, and the Sierra Club. And there's a nice video here that talks about why this amendment was even allowed to be on the ballot on November 2016 in Florida. You will know why such a misleading amendment was allowed to be put on the ballot after you watch this video. Please help solar power in Florida by voting no on this utility-backed sham solar amendment 1. Vote no on 1 in November. You can find out more at helpsolarpower.org. That's helpsolarpower.org.